I know you've had like a journey in terms of weight loss and fitness.
Mhm.
Could you tell us a little about that?
I guess, like, I reached the point, like, where I guess context is both my parents have always struggled with obesity. Like, there's just that. So there's a certain I don't have good eating habits. I just don't. So there was a time in my life where I actually was about 265 pounds. Um, and then I was like, nope, this is not what I want. I've got a young son. Like I was just about, my wife had just given birth to um our son, and I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. So I started exercising and dieting quite intensely. I don't know if you want me to speak to the specifics of what exactly I did.
Well, like, yeah, share like some of the stuff you did.
Yeah. So I guess I did this. I guess it's technically classified as a fad diet called intermittent fasting. And I started out like there is a lot of research backed, and good data to support intermittent fasting. And I would say like out of all the fad diets, it's probably one of the more researched ones. And if done correctly, is very successful. And I can actually, uh, you know,
Attest to it.
attest to
Yeah.
that. But there are some dangers with it as well. So what I did is I did intermittent fasting, and then I also did calorie counting as well. Um, and I started out with like I did 16:8, and then I did 18:6. And these are like eating windows, so
Yeah.
it's an hour's fasting, 6 hours of like eating window. And then yeah, so like numbers on the scale started to drop. They dropped fast.
Hmm.
And now that I'm on this side of things, so I lost about 100 pounds in about 10 months.
That's good.
It's great,
Yeah.
but also like when you think about how much, when you actually sit down and you do the math, that's not a normal amount of weight to lose.
No, it's pretty extreme.
Yeah, that's very extreme. And I would say that I probably at the time when I reflect back on it was maybe dealing with, I guess, low key like eating disorder.
Yeah, disordered eating.
It
Anyway.
was, yeah, disordered eating, and
Yeah.
I got so focused on the number on the scale that at some point I was even doing like 22 too. So like 22 fasting window, 2 hour eating window. So it's only doing like one meal a day essentially, and I would get all of my calories in one sitting or within 2 hours,
Right.
right? And yeah, like I actually eventually got down to about 160 pounds, which is about, if you look at BMI,
Yeah.
I mean, we both know the arguments, the health pros and cons. It's a good guide.
Yeah.
It's an okay guide,
Right.
right?
More for populations. Like
Yeah,
BMI was designed to measure like population health, not individual health, but we always use it as like a little marker. In school, we learned about the difference between an eating disorder and just full on, and just a disordered eating,
yeah,
right? And people usually associate that with women,
mm-hmm,
females.
mm-hmm,
But I've seen, like, I've had it myself, like in
mm-hmm,
terms of being an athlete and just
mm-hmm.
worried about that strength
Yep.
to weight ratio. Um, and I find that as educators, we get so into the numbers and we get so obsessed with like the process of doing it
Mm-hmm.
that we kind of go a little extreme
Yeah,
sometimes, right?
yeah. And that was definitely what happened with me.
Yeah.
And then I realized that, this is not okay, and it was actually really hard for me to stop. Um, because then you see the numbers start to climb.
Yeah. Oh, and you get that, like, you had the sense of progress every day when you saw it cutting, and
Yeah,
then it bites back 10 times
yeah.
harder when you see it rise again.
Yeah, and like now, like I'm back up. I'm technically classified as overweight,
Mm-hmm.
again, and that's really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like definitely like toying with my mentality and
Right.
about like how I feel about myself, because I was very successful. There was about 2 years there where I felt really good about like how I look, how I felt,
Mm-hmm.
and now like I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I've put some weight back on, for a number of reasons, and like you could argue, so, well, that's not really a reason. It's like, yeah, well, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, even just teaching, like
yeah,
when, like, I find it hard to be in any sort of calorie or energy deficit when you're trying to perform all day,
hmm
right? And the stress that goes on with that. And sometimes you just need like dopamine or serotonin. So the snacks are there to help, like, with, like, it's a balance between mental health.
or if you're stressed,
Yeah.
right? Like I know I'm a stress eater.
Yeah.
I'm an anxious eater, so like food is a comfort for me,
Right.
which is not a great place to if you're constantly stressed and under stress or have high cortisol.
Yeah. And like I know that like again, this is that whole cognitive dissonance
Yeah.
thing. Like we are trained to be healthy.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just don't follow it. So what are like how did you change your mindset? Because I see you in the gym now
Yeah.
almost every single morning.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it all sort of started with an injury. That really sort of changed a lot of perspective for me. Um, because I couldn't move and it was really hard to move in the way that I wanted to, or the way that I had lost, and at least in the way that I had initially lost all that weight, right? I did it with body exercises, and calorie counting, right? So now I lost my ability to do all my body weight exercises because of my shoulder injury. And that was really hard for me. And, you know, I've got a number of injuries that I was like, oh, like I can't run because I have a metal rod in my leg from
Right.
two pretty traumatic like leg breaks when I was a young adult slash teenager. So it's like, how do I do this? Right, my leg hurts when I run. I can't lift weights the way that I want. What can I do? I didn't have access to a bike. I can't afford a gym membership. So like, what do I do here? Right, and that was really hard. And that's when the weight like started really to come on, and then yeah, like something had to give and something had to change.
So like now, like I feel like once you get out of that, you realize like that just showing up is like the number one thing now. Instead of looking at the numbers now, what I find you're just focusing on the routine, just doing the same stuff over and over again, not looking at the dips and valleys day to day, week to week. You're just following a consistent schedule of working out, exercising, whatever way you can, right? And looking for those long-term gradual goals now.
Yeah, and that's ultimately where I'm at right now. I'm at a place where, like, yes, the numbers over the last 2 years have steadily increased on the scale, but it's
because weight is a marker, but it's not the only
it's not
marker.
the only marker, right? Like
Body composition, you're getting stronger.
yeah, like I would argue that like, my lower body is quite strong. My upper body is weak, but yeah, so it's just like showing up and having that consistency. So like right now it's just kind of like in a maintenance phase where I'm just trying to like maintain or like gain fitness in other areas so that I can slowly start to eventually get myself to a point where I can eventually lose weight, because like I said, I've got young children. I don't want to be overweight. We live in a very sedentary culture.
Yeah.
So I want to be moving, and I want to show my kids that too, right? Like that's a value that I want my children to have, because that's not something that I had growing up, right? I mean, both my dad was an elite athlete at one point, but then really like steeply fell off the wagon.
The metabolism slows down eventually, folks.
Yes, metabolism does slow down, but also, I mean, a pop and chip diet doesn't help either.
Right, yeah.